Hey everyone, welcome back to Southern Custom CC YouTube channel. Today we're going to check out a pretty cool new engine that's about to be released from Zeda over in China. I believe Zeda Motorsports will be selling it. BicycleEngines.com, probably a couple others, CDH.com. So it's the YD100 motorized bicycle engine. I didn't go ahead and get the kit because I have plenty of spare parts to go around, so I ended up just getting the engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up taking this apart and then we're going to check it out. I also just purchased the engine mount. I'm going to try and use this CNC engine mount. I'm going to have to check to see if the spacing will fit the YD100. But I am going to put this engine on a 1937 Columbia replica cruiser, the black and white. I love that build. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on because it has a little bit more torque to it as well. So hopefully we'll get a good ride out of that once it's pieced together. So let's open this baby up and see what we got. Once again, this is just the engine. I have plenty of spare pieces unused that I'll be able to put on this build. So first, actually, they sent me a carb with it. There's the high-speed carb. The only thing that really makes this high speed is that the cover's a little bit different from that black Punisher one. This actually has a little bit more air exposure, and air can get in there and it gives you just a little bit more power, a little bit better breathability. And you know, they call these the high performance CDIs. To tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure if these actually are high powered CDIs or they just put the red coil on there with a red boot, because typically what makes these high performance is you get a 7.5 or an 8mm copper core spark plug wire, and you take out the traditional one that it comes with and you replace that, and that has a better transferability and delivering of power. And then with an NGK boot, I mean, that's just an awesome combo to have. So we'll install it as is and check it out. Sent the traditional Z8C spark plug. We'll put the NGK B6HS in there, platinum tip. Looks like it's got a couple layers. So this particular engine I ended up getting off of Alibaba, and this was the CDH Power. They have a site here in America, but this is still kind of a fairly new setup. There's not much info on it as of right now. Okay. So, just by first look, I can tell it has the upgraded bolts. The head's a little taller, probably by 3 or 4 fins, probably 4 fins. Typically, I see the blue and black and white setup, and that's a traditional 6-volt magneto. And then the ones I see with the red and black tend to be the 12-volt, and without the white, when I see the red and black, it tends to be the Oz Super Magneto. So I'll see if there's a resistance to this that can tell us what it is. Traditional stock magneto will give us just over 0.3, and the high performance one will give us about 2.9. So let's check this out. Yeah, 0.3. So that kind of looks like a 6-volt. Alright. So it has the opened up exhaust round. Let's get some calipers. Got about 82.5 millimeters. I'm sorry, 0.82. Oh, it's in inches. I was gonna say it sounded weird. Okay, so one was got 21 millimeter exhaust opening. Is that 3? Is that 3 piston rings? It has the acorn nuts, which means it's going to have the rod, the 8 millimeter rod in there. The spark plug inlet. So I'm just trying to look down there. Alright, and then it's the 40 millimeter. The 40 millimeter. There we go. Intake. I like the 40 millimeters because they tend to be a little bit more open. You get better breathability to it. And this looks like the wider. Yeah, it is. 40. Yep. That's the 40 millimeter front mounting bracket, which is nice for cruiser bikes. And you know, overall, this has the 40, the 40, and 40. So you know, overall, this looks like the Zeda Firestorm from this down. This is a little bit higher, which gives it its expanded CC, as long as most likely a longer rod in there. But we'll check it out in just a moment. I think that's 3 rings. So let's take this off and see what we got. 14s, 13 millimeter. This seems pretty tight. I really don't like these acorn bolts. That's why I like the Skyhorse Allen These are easily stripped. Yeah, that one already feels stripped. If that happens, you pretty much have a wasted case. Right? For the sake of an experiment here and things that you can check out when you get yours. But I feel they've tightened those too much, and it already ate at the casing. And you can typically tell when the stud comes out with your acorn nut. So far, so good. But that was definitely beyond the 12 foot-pounds that I use on my typical head nut torque. So let's check this out. So it has two bottom gaskets. I'm wondering if that's going to mess with the timing at all, or if it's supposed to be like that. There goes 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. 2 on each. Okay. Oh yeah, that's crap up there. Look at that. Right up near the piston, where the piston would reach its max. There's a casing foil up there. I'm gonna have to bevel that out. Yeah, if that got crushed, that'd be a piece of cast in there. Get in our piston and in our engine. That's not good. The transfer ports are the same. Yeah, we'll get in there and we'll clean that up. The intake, we can open that up about 1 millimeter. Clean that up. But yeah, good thing I took that off. I want that out of there. That would be damage in the future, most likely. Typically, the piston arrow goes towards exhaust, but you can't always rely on that. What you have to look for are the 2 rings up front. Where the 2 rings close, you have 2 pins, and those should always be towards the intake side. So they have the piston on backwards. Yay, CDH. Good job, guys. So the piston's on backwards. Zero that baby out. Let's get my millimeters back. 50 millimeter piston. Yeah, just shy, but with the rings, you got 50 millimeters. I'm not gonna do anything with that piston rod. That piston rod looks the same length. I doubt it's balanced. Anyway, so I'm just gonna do this stock. Only thing I'm gonna change is I'm gonna flip this baby around. So if you end up getting one of these, you definitely want to turn that around. A little trick I use so that I don't lose my pins is I'll get my pliers and I'll cut a little notch in there. That way I'm able to grip out my piston. It won't fall in the engine. Oh man, that's super stiff. I'd want that greased up anyway. That's super stiff. There's barely any lubrication on there. You could go for the carbon, but these are alright. These typically last the life of the piston if you're not brutal on them. I'm still curious about this double gasket. I guess I'm just gonna have to wait and see how the engine performs. I'm gonna leave it on in hopes that that's what they want in, that's the design. But yeah, I'm just gonna have to wait to see how the putter is of it. But so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna switch this around. I'm gonna lube it up. I'm not gonna check the crank. I'm just gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave this all stock. Yeah, and the crank says YD100. So, yep, I'm gonna put this all back on. There's only 2 piston rings. High performance carb, the high performance CDI. Gonna cut that bevel out. Clean up that transfer line just slightly. Open that up about 1 millimeter. Curve that out. Piece this back together. So, yeah, let's get going. Alrighty, so we're back. I went ahead and I dremeled up the top of that cylinder head. I turned around the piston, got that reinstalled. Lubed up the bearings, the rod, the piston. Got that all settled back in. Once again, I left in the double gasket. If I can tell that the timing is off, if I have some sluggishness and backfire, you know, we'll know to be able to take that off, that the timing is off, which is not too bad. It's just those 4. Fortunately, it ended up not stripping any of the studs that are in the casing because they were really tight when we initially took off the acorn nuts. So I got these torqued back down to 12. We're gonna go ahead and take off the intake manifold. Once again, this is the 40 millimeter. Gets some better breathability. That's nice and wide. That is a huge opening, and it has a matching gasket. We'll clean up just a little bit. A nice fillet knife will take care of that. Just a hair. But yeah, we definitely want to maximize breathability. We'll clean that up in there. And you can generally tell how much you can clean up of your inlet by where that is matched. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to fillet that off with a fillet knife. So that's going to open it up at least. Jeez. That's a good amount of cleanup there. Yeah, that's almost 3 millimeters. And then 2 on that side. 2.5 on that side. Jeez. Yeah, that's going to clean it up nice. That's going to open that up. So essentially what's going to happen is that because it's like this, you know, that opening's that big, that gasket is blocking from the other side that much air and gas from entering into the engine at one time. So we're going to clean that up, which also means we're going to go ahead and Dremel this to match that. So then it will all be port matched, and we'll maximize intake of air and gas mixture, which will give it some extra power for sure. That's nice and thick, so we're going to Dremel that up about 1.5 millimeters, open up that. At the same time, you don't want to make it too thin, because then once you tighten down your carburetor, if it's not tight enough, it's going to crack. So we're definitely going to leave some integrity there, but we're going to open that up. We're going to widen that, fillet that gasket, and just, yeah, we've already kind of buffed that out, so we're sitting there. But that's what we're going to do next. Yeah, see you soon. Alrighty, so another day, I came back to it. Just so you know, I ended up taking the head back off, and I took off a gasket. I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, there's no need for two. They probably did that on a mistake, just like they turned the piston around by mistake. So instead of getting this all set up and going out there and finding out that the timing's off, I took this off and took out that extra gasket, put this back on. So I'm pretty sure that's the way it's supposed to be. We did end up opening up our intake inlet. We opened up that gasket and we fixed up the port match, so it's all port match. It's all one straight line in. Now it's time to look at the CDC mount that I ended up getting, and this has the M8 studs, which I forgot to mention a few moments ago. But the M8s don't fit in the standard CDC CNC mount. It's too wide because it's the wider bolts. So I'm going to show you a quick little way to get around that. So first thing we do is we are going to take off these nuts and washers. And we're going to take off these studs. Right, I'm doing this because I want to Loctite these studs. I want to Loctite these studs, and I want to Loctite these studs. It's very important that you do that to any engine. What that's going to do is that's going to keep those threads intact at those high vibrations. And when you have so much torque, what happens sometimes is that these bolts get shaken so much that they actually get pulled out, and you walk out to your engine sometimes if you don't do the Loctite, and you're missing your entire stud. And of course that's a huge hazard. So to prevent that, we come in here with some Loctite. Stress that up a little bit. Thread that back in. Okay, and then when you're putting this back in, okay, you don't want to over torque it, over tighten it, because what you're going to end up doing is you're going to actually start eating away at the casting that's in this bottom half of the engine. So what you want to do is just get it nice and snug, about finger tight. Push up on it about finger tight. And what's going to happen is when you actually come back down in here and you torque it some more, if you over torque it, then you're going to turn your stud, which is a lot better to be able to do that than to start stripping it out. So that's just a preventative measure to take note of. I'm going to get on this. It's not opening. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing to this one. Now, there are other things you can do. You can just mount without the CNC engine mount, but I want that on this particular build because of the Columbia Cruiser, which you're going to see here on a future video. The engine would sit very awkward if we didn't have this engine mount in. It would be tilted at such a degree that you're losing pull and torque from the engine angle. So we're going to get it more on a harmonious plane. And one thing, as you can see, yeah, that's a bent stud. So I'm just going to straighten this out real quick on my vise. That's good. That'll suffice. Tighten that up. Got some Loctite love. Once again, these M8 studs are very helpful on these engine setups. They are a lot thicker. They're a lot sturdier, and they hold your engine to the bike a lot better. So anytime you get this Firestorm setup or these M8 setups, M8 stud setups, it's kind of considered to be an upgrade. So be excited that you get those. Now once again, we're just going to kind of go finger tight. Too much. Alright, so here's what we're going to do to mount this. It's not going to fit, so I'm going to get a standard M8 setup. I'm going to put that mount on just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the smaller bolts. I'm going to thread it up and I'm going to tighten it so it's going to be a crisscross connection. Okay, I mean technically you kind of could do that, but I want to have pressure coming in being pushed that way and pressure coming in being pushed that way, so it balances out. And then that way you can easily mount this in any configuration. So what I'm going to end up doing now is I'm going to put on my washer, my lock nut, my washer, and my lock nut. And I am going to use nylon threaded nuts. I'm not going to use the nuts that it came with. I could use Loctite and tighten that up, but I found that these torque down a lot better, and these are just a much better quality. So I'm going to end up using these to secure the mount. Okay, and I will still give it just a dollop of Loctite and secure that baby down. Oops, I forgot that's a 13. There we go. evenly secure these down. I'm gonna get that snug, and then we're gonna come back and get this one snug. Then we're gonna come back and tighten that one down slightly, then tighten that one down slightly, just so that they are nice and tight evenly. So I'm actually going to Dremel these off. I'm going to cut off about a ½ inch of that, cut off about a half inch of that, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to install that. So then I'm going to get these bolts, I'm going to put them in, I'm going to put on my washer and my lock nut, and then I'm going to come in with my nylon nuts, and I'm going to secure that from the top end. And then that is how you get a regular CNC mount on these M8 studs, and it holds very secure. That's not going to tilt or move anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up, get this all set up, and then we will come in. We will use some caulk, waterproof caulk. We're going to put it in there. We're going to get some heat shrink tube. We're going to cut off this white wire. We're going to shove it back in through the line. So I'll just do that now. Cut that off. Pinch it. Don't want any of that wire. Shove it back in. There we go. Some heat shrink. Measure out a little bit. All right, so we now have our heat shrink on, our exit wires. We have some weatherproof caulk inside the exit port for our wires. We have our nuts secured for the front engine mount, and we took off about an inch of those M8 studs. Now it's time to put on that CNC mount. So I'm just going to go ahead, and like I said, we're going to have the nuts up on top. And we're not going to secure that yet, because we are going to wait till we start mounting the engine, and this is going to help us so that we get our chain aligned and we have enough space between our pedal and our exhaust that hooks down and around. So this helps us line that up to give us a few more millimeters of space. So I'm not going to actually secure this yet until we start to mount it on the engine. So that is the YD100. We're going to go in. I'm going to start setting up that Columbia build, and I'm going to start mounting this. So next time you see it, we'll be going for a ride. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and drop that down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up, and we look forward to seeing you around again. And please come back and check out the Columbia build with the YD100. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Mark, Southern Custom CC. Have a goodie.